If you're going to come to fasting to lose weight, like welcome, but stay for all the other health benefits.
Today at Ayık Kafa Podcast, my guest is Dr. Mindy Pelz. She's a world-renowned fasting and women's health expert with a specific focus on metabolic fasting. She is the host of her own show, the Resetter Podcast, also a bestseller author with titles like The Reset Factor, The Menopause Reset, Fast Like a Girl, and her latest, Eat Like a Girl. Dr. Mindy Pelz grabbed millions of people's attention by educating them about fasting, weight loss, and reclaiming their health. Dr. Mindy is a recognized leader and pioneer in the fasting movement. With her immense depth of knowledge about fasting for men and women, she makes complicated issues like fasting easy and practical to understand. In this episode, Dr. Pelz really simplifies fasting at every stage, whether you're a seasoned pro at fasting or not entirely sure where to start. She also helps women to understand what to pay attention to while fasting, all the way from their reproductive years to post-menopausal. Dr. Mindy's approach relies on the body's ability to heal itself. Optimal health and weight management can be achieved through the simplicity of intermittent fasting. And finally, she gives some hints about her new upcoming book, Eat Like a Girl. Now, let's go back to our conversation with Dr. Mindy Pelz. Here is something that is fascinating. A huge amount of people who watch this channel frequently are not subscribed. So I want to ask you a quick favor. When you subscribe, it helps us to make the show better, access to the world-leading experts, and ultimately bring you more value. All that I ask is for you to hit the subscribe button, and in return, I promise we will make Ayık Kafa better every day. Well, Dr. Mindy Pelz, what an honor you're here. When I received the email, I got so excited. I wanted to do this interview actually since I listened to your talk at A4M back in December. I was just starting to my podcast, and my goal was to bring in the correct information. And actually, it's the first time I've ever heard about women needs to fast differently.
Amazing.
And you did this revolutionary thing around the world. I'm sure there were some studies, people were not talking about it too much, but with you starting this movement, then so many other doctors, clinicians, people started talking about women needs to do things differently, whether it's fasting, eating, exercise. So first of all, thank you from a woman to a woman for your huge help to so many people.
Thank you. That means a lot. I appreciate that.
With this fasting thing, it's just, they say like it creates miracles. The first time I heard it, it was 2019 actually at Dave Asprey's conference from Dr. Pompa. And he was talking about water fasting. It felt a little too harsh. You know, there are clinics around the world. There's one in Germany. They do water fast. So people would go there and you would hear these kind of very difficult stories like, oh my God, I was like horrible. And then I had another couple friend in New York, they say like 3 days fasting, but it sounded like, you know, like you go to the pilgrimage and it's like hard and rough and, you know, like you struggle so much. Then with your approach, hey, you know what? You don't need to struggle.
That's right.
You have tools and let me help you.
Yeah.
And the best part, after saying this, I'm going to turn it to you. But the best part, how you're describing is, it's free.
Yeah.
Most of the people I interview here is like, either they invented something or they're talking about functional medicine that you have to do lots of testing and supplements and whatnot. Yeah. And here you are, guess what? I'm going to give you a tool free.
Yeah.
Just with a book or watch my podcast. I'm not asking anything else.
Yes.
And this is going to empower you.
Yeah.
So how did this story start?
Oh my gosh. Well, for starters, I love that you caught the free thing as being the heart of what I'm trying to teach. So let me take you back to 2015, 2016 time period. There was a Japanese scientist that his name is Dr. Yoshinori Ohsumi, and he discovered a concept called autophagy. And autophagy, what he discovered after looking at this for over a decade, was that the body will actually repair itself in the absence of food. And what happens is there's an internal mechanism inside a cell that senses that there's no more nutrients coming in. And so it triggers a healing response inside the cell to push out bacteria, to push out viruses, to repair cellular parts, to kill cells that were going to be cancer cells or what they call zombie cells, which are aging cells. And his work became famous. He was actually given the Nobel Prize in Medicine and Physiology in 2016 for his work. So when I saw that study, my brain was like, wait, without food, the body detoxes, the body gets rid of cancer cells, the body slows down aging. Wait a second, this is incredible. Why does the world not know this? And so I started to follow his work, and I followed many of the people that took his work and turned it into, many books and podcasts and studies. And they actually even tried to find a medicine that would stimulate autophagy, and they couldn't find it. And then I realized, I'm like, here's the problem with autophagy. Nobody's going to make money off of it. Nobody's going to make money off of the body healing itself without food. And so it kind of died. It didn't get the momentum. We have supplements. We have other things that people are saying will do autophagy. But what I really wanted to highlight is to the world, but especially women, was, wait, if you take food out of your life for a short period of time, your body will do everything you're trying to make it do with all these biohacks and supplements. But you're not going to, the media doesn't pick that up because nobody's making money off that. So I love the free part is so important because we have to have a health tool that everybody can do, not just people that can afford it.
Yeah, that's really important, especially countries like Turkey.
Yeah.
Because we're already in a struggle with economics and people are having a hard time to maintain their life. So a tool that will take them into this health journey, it's so very important because I really received on the comments on the YouTube channel, sometimes it really breaks my heart because they go like, oh, it seems like this is for rich people. They're like really these comments about, and they're right because all these tools that are offered to us are really costing a lot of money.
Yep.
These big tests cost a lot of money. These devices cost money, everything. So this is amazing. And I want to actually show here that there's the Turkish version of Dr. Mindy's book called Kadınlar için Aralıklı Oruç. Actually, I'm going to make her sign this book and give to one of my audience members.
I love that.
Yeah, so that, they will have a chance to read it.
Yeah.
Let's start talking about people post-menopause.
Yeah.
Because that's where
Beautiful.
I am.
I love it. Everybody wants to start with the cycling woman. So let's start.
I like talking about things that I'm experiencing in a way so that I have a better understanding and better experience to share with other people.
Yeah.
Because, I know. I heard, you have to fast like this in your cycle, like first 10 days, 20 days. We don't have the cycle.
No, we don't.
So how do we manage or what is the rule?
Yeah. So the first thing that I think is really important for postmenopausal women to know is that as you go through the menopause process, your brain becomes less receptive to glucose. So, and glucose, just so for people who are listening, comes from the food we eat. So we eat food and we call it your blood sugar. Your blood sugar goes up. That's called glucose. And then that glucose goes into the mitochondria within your brain, with all the cells of your body, and energizes you. But for the postmenopausal woman, that doesn't happen as easily. Her brain can't take that glucose and use it for energy. So what that means is now she's got brain fog. She can't focus. She can't remember.
Can we first clarify, are we talking about women who are on hormone replacement therapy or not?
It doesn't matter if you're on hormone or not. But thank you, because that's also a really interesting thought. Because hormone replacement therapy is to add in a little bit of hormones to make that menopausal process easier. It's not to give you the hormones you had at 20. It's to give you enough to handle the decline of hormones. But when estrogen goes down, the brain becomes less open to glucose. So it actually shifts to another fuel source. and that's called a ketone. So we have to always remember what's energizing our cells is glucose and ketones. So now your brain, the menopausal woman, is going to make a metabolic shift, and it's going to be more receptive to ketones than to glucose. So if a menopausal woman is not fasting, then there's more brain fog. There's more trouble focusing.
Versus what? Like when you say it's not receptive to glucose, means that food that you eat normally should
Fuel the brain.
But menopausal women are not really taking them in.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. So the menopausal brain doesn't respond to glucose. So, but remember, there's two fuel sources. And this was a big thing I introduced in Fast Like a Girl, was that we don't just have one metabolism, we have two. One where we have glucose and the other one is ketones. So, but for the postmenopausal woman, her brain is going to slant more towards ketones. So with fasting in general, postmenopausal women have so much more brain clarity when they start to learn how to fast so that they can get those ketones. That's what, I mean, we see it with millions of women in our community where one day they can't think straight. They learn to fast. They're 55, 60 years old. And like within a week or two of learning to fast, they're like, my brain came back. That's because you gave it the right fuel source. So I think that's the first thing that I want every postmenopausal woman to know. If you're struggling with your brain, we got to teach you how to fast so you can get these ketones.
We're talking about long fast, short fast, because then there are these because 12 hours doesn't seem like fasting to me. It's like a normal eating.
So let's use the metabolic shift.
Oh, yeah. I really am curious about that because I really don't understand the meaning of it.
Yeah. So you eat a meal and then you don't eat. So let's make it very applicable to people. Sure. You stop eating at 8 o'clock at night. So then about 8 hours after that meal, your metabolism is going to start to switch over into what I call the fat burner metabolism.
8 hours.
8 hours it starts. But I usually say, based off the research we've seen and all the people we've been working with, is that about 12 hours after that meal. So if you go 8, you're looking at about 8 o'clock the next morning.
Sure.
What is happening is now your brain is over into the fat burning state. Okay, this fat burning state clinically is known as the ketogenic energy system. And the only way that your body can make a ketone is by burning the fat in your body, makes a ketone at 12 hours without food. Now, you're getting ketones, so all of a sudden now it's 13 hours, 14 hours, 15 hours without food, and you're getting more ketones and more ketones. You're 17, 18, 19 hours with food. All these ketones are rushing into your body. They go up to the brain. They start to create changes where you'll upregulate GABA. And so now you're calm. They'll start to repair neurons.
Does it help sleep?
It can absolutely help with sleep. Yeah.
I'm this one person who struggles a lot no matter what I do.
Yeah. Because it calms. It calms the brain. And when GABA comes in, from your work.
So we're now in 24 hours?
Yeah. I mean, the longer you go.
Okay. Every hour is that we add.
I laid out 6 different length fasts in Fast Like a Girl.
Sure.
But the ketones start around 12 hours.
So, question. Does it matter what you eat the night before you start the fast?
It can.
Because, you can eat like a Turkish pastries and whatever.
Yes.
Would it still start after 12 hours?
Yeah, yes. I mean, think of it this way. So if you have a Turkish pastry at 8 o'clock at night, your blood sugar is really high.
Sure.
Your blood sugar is going to have to come all the way down to a normal level before it switches over. As opposed to if you had, yesterday I had a beautiful lamb kebab and it was wrapped around the bread. I'd put the bread aside and I just had the kebab because I didn't want my blood sugar to go so high so that I could switch over into a ketogenic state quicker.
So let's come back to the menopausal women because day-wise, you said that, fasting helps their brain fueling.
Right.
But they cannot fast all the time.
That's right.
Meaning like not eating food ever.
Yeah.
So how do you guide them?
Yeah. So for the postmenopausal woman, what we have to realize is that we have 3 sex hormones. We have estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Estrogen and progesterone, I always say they're like twin sisters. We call them the same thing. They look the same way, but they actually have very different personalities and they like to be treated differently. So for the menopausal woman, if she wants to help her estrogen system, which is what helps our brain, then she wants more ketones. She wants to fast more. But we also have progesterone, and progesterone doesn't like if cortisol gets too high. And cortisol, so the longer you fast, the more cortisol comes in. And she needs a little bit of glucose to be able to make progesterone. Okay. So she's still got to eat. So this is why every day you wake up, you say, when am I going to open my eating window today? How long am I going to fast?
Okay.
So let's use yesterday for me. We are here having fun and vacationing in Istanbul, and my brain was like, I'm going to open up my eating window at noon. And once I open up my eating window, then I will give my body glucose so I can make progesterone. But in the morning, I'm now 13, 14, 15 hours into a fast. I'm making ketones so I can help estrogen. So we still have to balance both of these sex hormones.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So basically, are we talking like every day, meaning like 15, 16 hours for postmenopausal women?
So let's put it in a weekly variation for
please.
postmenopausal women. So I like something called a 5-1-1.
Okay.
5 days a week, you intermittent fast. So maybe you fast 15 hours, 17 hours. You get a good little amount of ketones. For me, I'm postmenopausal too. I like to fast in the morning, so I have the ketones to do work. Keeps my brain sharp. Then 1 day a week, you want to stretch that fast. So I do like a 24-hour fast 1 day a week where I just eat dinner.
Okay.
So, and those are my biggest work days. Those are the days I will, when I look at my calendar and I'm like, oh, I'm back to back to back on meetings, I will fast that whole day. Those 6 days, I'm helping support estrogen. And then 1 day, I don't fast. I get up, I eat breakfast so I can get enough glucose to make progesterone.
There's also the psychology in it, I guess. When you were saying, okay, you decide when you're going to break your fast, kind of prepares you. So you let your system say, hey, don't freak out. I'm going to eat. So you don't need to like push up the cortisol, whatever. So it's going to come. So just chill. That's the self-talk. Because how I experienced this fasting thing, I'm going to then come to a little bit to other doctors in the field about like you need to eat in the morning as a woman. So I was doing these fasts, sometimes 24 hours, sometimes 16 hours. It was very easy.
Yeah.
When you get into that rhythm, it's fine. But suddenly I started getting bombarded. You're going to lose your muscle. You need to eat enough protein. You need to eat first thing in the morning. Then I found myself, because I used to have a problem with my fluctuating weight when I was young. And therefore, there's this psychological thing like, oh my God, I start eating now. What's going to happen? So when I started eating first thing in the morning, then I'm never able to close that door. It's just like a weird thing. It's not like, oh, I ate in the morning and I'm not going to eat dinner. It's just like I'm hungry all the time or I want to have food all the time. If you don't mind, let's get a little section here before we go to all the other fasting, because we spoke before the podcast. So there's this huge push and information about women not only needs to fast differently, but needs to eat differently and work out differently. And when you look to these advices, like I was just saying, you need to eat first thing in the morning because women do the protein synthesis in the morning. And you're going to lose your muscle after 40. Every year you lose 1% of your muscle. So then it's a confusion of two worlds.
Right.
So how do you, let me ask you, because you're an active, sportive person. I think you're very, you play tennis, I guess, and you used to be a competitive. So I'm sure you're very mindful of your own health.
Of
so
course.
let's start with you, because, you have to keep your muscle. How do you do that with your style of fasting and keeping still your muscle and taking in enough protein?
It's such a good question. So the first thing I want to say is think of every day you have an eating window. You get to choose where that eating window goes. So my eating window varies every single day, and now I'll be 55 in a couple weeks. I do it according to my workout. So on my strength training days, the days I'm going to lift my heavy weights, I do the protein in the morning, and I will skip. My eating window might be like 8 to 2 or 8 to 3. And I won't do dinner. So I just move my eating window up on the days that I'm really pushing muscle and making sure that I increase muscle. On the other days, like I said, where like I'm not gonna work out and do strength training that day. Maybe I'm gonna go for a walk, or I've gotten really into wrecking with a weighted vest.
I have that too.
Yeah.
I exaggerate everything. So I bought one for like 30 pounds. I'm like how crazy I am.
Yeah. Well, mine is only 20, but yeah.
I got stuck on a hill the other day. I'm like, I can't walk anymore. I don't know what to do. Shall I drop this thing here and walk back home?
Oh my gosh, you're so funny. So like on the days that I ruck, my protein will be after that meal. Maybe I go and I ruck in a fasted state, and then I come home and do my protein. So the first thing I want everybody to know is you don't have to do the same thing every single day. You can take all these incredible concepts and you can play with them according to your lifestyle. And I think that's super important to say. Second thing I want to say on the muscle loss. So when you go into these fasted states, the idea of fasting is to break down what no longer serves you. So get rid of the toxins, get rid of the extra sugar, break down fat, get all of that out of you. And then when you are done fasting, you need to eat. And when you eat, post-menopausal women need to eat protein. Yes, we can count the grams of protein if that works for you. But when you look at a meal, this is what Eat Like a Girl is about, is like when you look at a meal, every single post-menopausal woman should look at her plate and say, do I have enough protein and do I have enough fiber? So, and if you are focused when you eat on protein, then fasting doesn't waste your muscle away. Is that helpful to understand?
Yeah, very, very much so. Then my family members are not going to be happy about this question because I keep bringing this up. So there are people out there fasting, doing 1 meal a day. That meal is like, oh my God.
Garbage.
It's just like, I mean, it's not garbage, all the way garbage, but it is like incredibly loaded carbs, unthoughtful mixtures.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's the wine and whatever inside. And they think that it's working, but I watch them. They're not getting thinner. If anything, they're getting fatter. Like skinny fat, let's say.
Right, skinny fat, yeah.
So what do you think of that? I don't think that you think anything good about that. But, how would we guide men who think that they can do like 22-hour fasting and then eat in 2-hour window, like whatever they want?
Well, I think the first thing for both men and women is we have to go back to the primal days and think about what our cave ancestors did. I always say they came out of the cave, they didn't have any food, so they had to go hunt for food. Sometimes they got food right away, sometimes it took days for them to get food. That's when, in order to stay focused, in order to have muscle power, they had to go into this fat-burning system and get ketones because they didn't have any food. Then they made a kill, and then they came home and they feasted. And they feasted probably for days. And then they would do the same thing again. But it was irregular because they didn't know when they were going to get food. So when we do 1 meal a day over and over and over again, the body's metabolism gets stuck. And it starts to hold on to fat. It thinks, oh, wait, I don't know when the next meal's coming. So it actually becomes less efficient at burning fat. So that's why they're skinny fat. So what we've got to do is we've got to mix it up as humans. We're not supposed to eat at the same time, fast at the same time, both men and women. It's called feast, famine, cycling. And then what I did with feast, famine, cycling, I then took that concept and just mapped it to a woman's menstrual cycle.
Then let's now move back to that women who are having cycles, menstrual cycles, because you mentioned in your book, in your talks, about how women who are not eating properly, it may not be the fasting, but any irregular eating or too much diet,
Yeah.
that they start skipping their menstrual cycles.
Yeah.
And you also said that, people who are following your suggestions and regimens, they start bleeding again.
Yeah.
So which age bracket we're talking about now? From the puberty until perimenopause or
all the way till menopause.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as you have a cycle.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that the thing that was really interesting, and I think this will help people sort of understand, is when I first started to understand fasting, I tried it on myself. I was 43 at the time. And I did it with all of my patients. And we would do these long fasts, 3-day, 5-day water fasts. I would do them with all my patients in my clinic. And I call it the mama bears. All the mama bears wanted to fast because they want to get the weight they gained from pregnancy off. And I noticed that the longer a woman fasted, if she didn't stop fasting at certain times, that her hair was starting to fall out, that she actually might start gaining weight again, that she started spotting. Maybe she was only 40 years old and she was spotting. So I went and looked at the sex hormones and I realized, oh wait, progesterone doesn't like when we fast. So this is really interesting. This is like one of the biggest things I want every woman to understand. There is a reason we crave carbohydrates the week before our period. There is a reason we are more hungry the week before our period. Because progesterone's like, hey, I need you to bring glucose up. I need more glucose in the system it's like a chemistry experiment so that I can make my appearance, so I can be made. So what happens when a woman fasts too much is that she tanks progesterone. And now she spots. Now she loses her cycle. So what I really brought to the world with Fast Like a Girl is there's a time for a woman to fast and there's not a time to fast. And what was interesting in all your research, I think you'll find this story fascinating, is when I figured this out in my clinic, I took it to YouTube and I started teaching it on my YouTube videos. Well, at that time, Jason Fung's Obesity Code book came out. Did you read that book?
No, I did not.
Oh, it's a really interesting book. He was the first one to say, hey, we don't gain weight because of calories. We gain weight because of insulin, and it's a hormonal issue. So all these women were doing one meal a day. And then on my YouTube channel, I was teaching this thing I had discovered in my clinic where I was cycling women in and out of different fasts according to their periods. All these women came over to my YouTube and then they started experimenting with the different cycling of fasting, and we started to see women's cycles come back. We started to see women be able to get pregnant again. We started seeing 48-year-old women start to lose weight. We started to see joint pain go away. And you talked about endometriosis. We started polycystic ovarian syndrome. We saw all these conditions that women were having. We started to see that they were repairing themselves just by learning how to cycle fasting. So and then I think I told you this, I hired a team that just scoured all of these comments and brought them back, and I could start to see the pattern of what women needed. And that became the through line for Fast Like a Girl.
You have something called 30-day reset.
Yeah.
So is this for people for them to get ready to get into that fasting cycle?
Yeah, so now we're talking about the cycling woman, and I think the easiest thing for me to do is go through the cycle.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So for starters, day one thing I learned in teaching the world this is day one is most women don't know what day one of their period is. So day one is when you have to use feminine care products.
All right.
So from day 1 to day 10, estrogen is building.
What if you're not bleeding 10 days?
That's a really good question, because just so we all understand how unique we are, some women bleed 3 days, some women bleed 7 days. So at day 1, the hormones crash, they come down. And then for the next 10 days, estrogen will build.
Okay, so it doesn't matter how many days.
Doesn't matter how many days you bleed. So from day 1 to day 10, when estrogen's building, estrogen needs you to be insulin sensitive. You have to have that glucose system. You have to have glucose low. So those 10 days are great for fasting. They're great for the ketogenic diet. If you do that, estrogen's very happy. You move into ovulation. Ovulation is day 11 to day 15. The other thing I want women to know is you ovulate a different day from a different ovary every month. So some will ovulate on day 12, some will ovulate on day 15. Every month we're different. But in that 5-day, 6-day period, estrogen peaks. And then you get a little bit of testosterone. And testosterone is more than libido. Testosterone is like our motivation and drive. And then you get a little bit of progesterone. So in the book, I called it the manifestation phase. Because I was like, oh my gosh, wait, you can manifest a baby, but if you look at what happens with these hormones, you can think better. Estrogen brings with her all these neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin and acetylcholine, glutamate, oxytocin, BDNF. So your brain is really sharp. Testosterone brings motivation and drive. And then progesterone brings a little bit of GABA, so you're calm. It's a great time of the cycle. So we don't want to fast during that time. Food is more of your tool. And that's why I wrote Eat Like a Girl, is to kind of help people understand that. Then day 16, so little bit of fasting, maybe 13, 15 hours, but no more than not a 24-hour fast, not a 3-day water fast, never during ovulation. Then you come out of ovulation, day 16 to day 20, you're building progesterone. So you can do a little bit more fasting during that time.
Like 16, 17?
16, 17. A lot of women will go into a 3-day water fast, like 16, 17, 18.
Oh, like 3 days?
Yeah, you could do, there's a small little window there. I called that the power phase. And the first phase I called power phases because I was like, you could power up on your health habits during that time.
So after the 20th?
Yeah, then on 20, I called it the nurture phase. And this is important because I intentionally named the cycle differently because we need to nurture ourselves first. Day 20, progesterone's coming in. Progesterone wants you to calm. Progesterone doesn't want a lot of stress. I always say progesterone is shy when cortisol is high. So we need to stay a little calmer. We need to not work out as hard. We shouldn't fast as much. We shouldn't be skimping on sleep. And progesterone wants glucose to be a little higher. So we want to eat more of our fruits and vegetables and potatoes and quinoa and fruits. Tropical fruits are great for progesterone. Chocolate is great for progesterone. And if you do that, and then day 1, you bleed.
Yeah.
And it all starts over again. But no fasting in the week before the cycle. No fasting.
I almost feel like, I'm glad I'm on my post-menopause because there's a lot of thinking when you're bleeding.
Yes, yes.
Too many, like you do this, you don't do that.
Yeah.
Because food is such a taboo, especially for women.
Yeah.
The weight, the food, what you eat. Even they call people who are using these GLP-1 agonists, which, if you do microdosing, it really is helpful for the brain and etc. But there's this shame to people that, you're cheating if you do the Ozempic, whatever. I mean, then it's cheating everything. If you're lifting weights, like you're cheating, or if you're driving instead of walking, it's cheating. So therefore, this pressure on society that you need to really do the hard work in order to achieve a proper weight.
Yeah.
Therefore, while you were saying that you need to nurture yourself, then now you need to hold and not eat. I believe there are a fair amount of women with eating disorders. And that doesn't mean with anorexia. It's like a disordered eating. It might be bulimia. It might be constantly worried what I'm going to eat.
Yep.
And if I'm going to eat, am I going to put weight? So constantly looking to the scale.
Yeah.
It's really... It felt a bit difficult, tough to me because of my past that I had to constantly control what I'm eating.
Yeah.
But the great thing is you're coming out with a book.
Yeah.
Because over there you're going to explain and you're going to give suggestions because it's very difficult to find sources, the proper sources on what to do in the proper window or what to eat or what not to eat.
That's right. Okay, so I have so many things to say on
GLP-1.
Do
go.
Yeah, the first thing I want to say is what I'm a visual learner, so what I tried to do with the explanation of the cycle is I put it in a really pretty visual, and it's in black and white in Fast Like a Girl, but Eat Like a Girl, it's a colored book.
Nice.
And so people can just visually look at it and see what works and what doesn't work. So there's that. Okay, GLP-1 hormone. It is made by our microbiome. We naturally make GLP-1 hormone by our microbiome. And there is one food source that is destroying our own natural production of GLP-1, and that is toxic fats.
Okay, toxic fats. Let's open that.
Okay, canola oil, vegetable oil, cottonseed oil, safflower, sunflower, partially hydrogenated soybean. These fats that are in across the world. They're very, very prevalent in America. I see
over here.
Yeah,
as well.
I've the days I've been here in Istanbul, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
So when you are eating those toxic fats, they are destroying the bacteria in your gut that help you make GLP-1 hormones. So it's very interesting to me that we have a food system that has permeated our food with these toxic fats. And now we have a big pharma system that has created a drug that is going to mimic what our own body can naturally do. Now, that leads to the question of, if I stay off of these fats, will I regrow these microbes that will be able to make GLP-1 hormones? And the answer of what we're seeing in our community is yes. And here's how I know, is because the way I teach fasting, when you fast, you get rid of the bad bacteria in your gut. But this is why Eat Like a Girl is so important, because when you bring food back in, if you bring back in probiotic, fermented rich foods, polyphenol foods like olive oil, prebiotic foods like nuts and seeds, and you feed those microbes, you can literally regrow your microbiome. And now that microbiome can make the hormone that everybody's trying to get in a shot.
Yeah.
The thing about the shot that has me concerned, and I liked that you're microdosing it, and I like the microdose idea of it, but not everybody can afford that.
Sure. Did you know that the price is so different, England versus US? In England, they sell the 1 month worth thing. It's about like 250 pounds. Maybe it's $350. And in the US, it's like 1,200.
Yes, Stephen Bartlett and I talked about this.
Such a huge difference.
Yes. On one hand, there are lives being saved with these weight loss drugs. So I don't want to ever make anybody who had 100 pounds, who was pre-diabetic or maybe massively diabetic, and they took these drugs, and now all of a sudden they lost weight. But what we have now is a culture of people that are losing weight, and then how are they going to get off? How are they ever going to get off of it?
Do you think it would be helpful using the GLP agonist, Ozempic, Mounjaro, and now there's a new one, I guess, that is affecting 3 different systems?
Okay.
And use your system so that it would be an easier, smoother acclimation to fasting?
Yeah. So when I started to see that trend go on, I sat with so many people. I'm like, tell me what you notice. And they say, well, I'm not hungry. I'm like, well, that's what a fasting lifestyle does. The biggest complaint I get, this sounds crazy if you're hearing this for the first time and you're trying to wrap your head around all of this. People go from food addiction, food cravings, to I'm not hungry now, when they learn how to metabolically switch from sugar burner to fat burner. So we're naturally seeing, and now we're teaching with Eat Like a Girl how to break your fast so you can repair your microbiome.
I think that's very important what you said, because it's not just breaking the fast, it's trying to heal it.
That's right.
Today, last night actually, for a while now, for 2 months or so, I've been trying to build muscle, and I really started a little too much, and my fat levels are very low. But I found myself like, I want to eat all the time. It's a weird thing. I'm like, last night I said, today I'm doing 24-hour fast.
Nice.
I just made a decision because I was able to. And suddenly I became this thing, when am I going to eat? I'm hungry without being hungry. So slowly I'm getting back to this rhythm now that I'm confirmed that I'm not going to lose my muscle.
Yeah. And just make sure. So let's use you as an example. If let's say tomorrow you do a 15-hour fast. When you eat enough protein. Make sure you're getting enough protein. I do this all the time. Like if I feel like, I call it like a little padded, feeling a little more padded, I'll fast a little longer. And then when I go back into food, I go into protein and fiber.
Can we talk about what are the benefits? Like there's a lot of benefits and we didn't touch base on.
Yeah.
Because people think of way too much of losing weight.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say if you're going to come to fasting to lose weight, like welcome, but stay for all the other health benefits. So let me go through the time periods of fasting and what happens. I think that will be helpful for people. So about 13 to 15 hours without food, your body starts to upregulate growth hormone. Growth hormone starts to decline at 30. So with growth hormone upregulating, your body starts to slow the aging process down and it starts to burn more fat. Growth hormone is also the precursor to every other hormone. So you got to have growth hormone to make sex hormones, to make insulin, to make all of it. We also see that your inflammation starts to come down during that time period. 17 hours, autophagy begins. So your cells start to detox themselves. They get rid of cells that are maybe cancer cells or the zombie aging cells. 24 hours, your brilliant body, this is my favorite, the brilliant body starts to upregulate intestinal stem cells. Inside your gut, the gut registers, hey, no food's coming in. So we're going to need to make the inner lining of the gut better. So a big swarm of stem cells go into your gut and starts to repair the mucosal lining of your gut, gets rid of the bad bacteria. The good bacteria spread out. So they're preparing for food. They're waiting for food to come in so they can grab the vitamins and start to do all the things the gut's supposed to do. 36 hours, all of a sudden the body's like, wait, food hasn't come in for a while. We're going to need to go and find something we stored years ago. We stored some glucose around the belly, back of the arms, face, the chest. Let's go burn the extra fat around these areas where I stored extra glucose. 48 hours, the brain's like, okay, we haven't had food. I need this human to be motivated to go find food. So the whole dopamine system gets rebooted.
Oh, wow.
You get new dopamine receptor sites that form, the neuron, the axon of that are like carrying the thoughts across, and the upregulation of dopamine that as you know, activates the transmission of happy thoughts from one neuron to the other. All of that gets reset. And then at 72 hours, your body's like, okay, it's been 3 days. We're going to have a massive influx of stem cells throughout the whole body so we can get stronger. And we need the immune system to be stronger.
It's released from the bone marrow and everywhere?
Exactly.
As if you're getting into the hyperbaric chamber.
Just as you're getting into the hyperbaric, exactly. Or like injecting, So it gets released from the bones, from the cells. And stem cells are made in many different joints. And this is an interesting one, stem cells are made in bone. And I just want to go back to one interesting fact is that the chemicals that have been poured into our food, what they do, they're called obesogens, and they hijack these stem cells, and they tell the stem cells that make bone to make fat.
Okay.
So you are now with a 3-day water fast, you're reprogramming those stem cells so that they can start to do what they were supposed to do, which is make bone, but they also will go into the system and repair other parts of the body.
So then it's so important to break the fast very properly, because you can suddenly, while all these organisms waiting some nurturing and nourishing food, if you put anything kind of chemical-ish, then it's just going to switch everything and move things into a very horrible place.
Yeah. This is the chronic disease problem we have in the world right now, is so many toxins have changed our cellular mechanisms. So, and this is leading to the massive chronic disease problem. So fasting, what was interesting to me about Fast Like a Girl was how many people healed themselves because they just took a break from all those toxins. It was like the body could actually do what it needs to do.
I know you're very focused on these toxic foods, and you suggest people not to look in the aisles of the supermarkets, but look into the refrigerated areas.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how it is here in Turkey.
I would like you to say about what I was listening yesterday, how you were teaching your niece or nephew about how to read the labels.
Yeah. So the story I always say is that my nephew came to me when he was maybe 13. And he brought me a container of frozen waffles. And he said, is this good for me? And I said, first off, I want you to read the ingredients. and he started to read them, and about half of the ingredients he couldn't pronounce. And so I said, first rule is if you can't pronounce it, it's probably a chemical. Second thing, I asked him to Google every one of the ingredients he couldn't pronounce. And he found that one of them was cancer-causing. And then he came back to me and he said, how can they put cancer-causing ingredients in our foods? I was like, that's the problem we have in the world today. So in Eat Like a Girl, I actually have a whole section on how to read a label. I have a whole section on what these toxic ingredients are that you need to avoid. But yeah, it's toxins in food that is allowed in our food, and it's really sad.
Unfortunately, it's everywhere. It's just when I did the interview with Dr. Gundry, when he was saying about like Roundup being sprayed to kill the crop to be able to harvest them, everything at the same time, then it's patented to Bayer as an antibiotics, and the animals are fed with antibiotics. I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know what to eat. And it's really like making me very concerned, freak out almost. But the same thing with fruits and with nuts and seeds, everything.
Yeah. I don't know how it is here in Turkey, but I will tell you in the United States, like they call them food deserts. Have you heard of that term?
No, what's that?
So they're saying that like many parts of America have where there is no longer healthy food, there is only this toxic food. So even like a banana, they have actually injected with chemicals to make the banana bigger and more yellow so that the human buying is like, oh, that looks like a good banana, but there's no nutrients in it. It's all toxins. So there's deserts in America and parts of America where you can't get the original food without chemicals in them. And that is a major, major problem right now. So this is why the best thing, well, two things if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I'm really depressed now, or like what you're saying, like, I don't know what to eat. This is why fasting works so well.
You don't eat.
Give yourself a break from eating every once in a while so your body can recover. It's like you're rucking. You can't take 30 pounds up a hill every single day and feel good. Some days you have to do nothing. You can't eat toxic food all the time. Sometimes you have to take a break from it so the body can repair. Second thing is never eat anything with an ingredient label. Only eat things that don't have an ingredient label on it. So that's your fruits, your vegetables, your meats. It's the nature's food. It's what nature provided for us.
Okay. Well, it's difficult sometimes.
I'm not saying it's easy, but if you walk into your market, the foods without a label usually are around the outside.
Sure.
And those are the ones, your vegetables, your fruits, your meats, your potatoes, even your rices, your quinoa. Like if you stay with that, it's the breads, the cakes, the pastas, the cookies. It's the packaged foods.
It's almost what I'm hearing. You can control so many things with the way you eat and the way you fast, then at least you're getting rid of other toxins that you've been dumped so much. EMF radiation, I know you're concerned about them. You are concerned about pollution. Everything the new age and technology brings us that makes our life very easy, yet at the same time comes with so many negative effects. So important that the word easy is really important. We have become so comfortable and we're constantly eating things that make us and doing things that are built around comfort. The fastest way to age is keep yourself comfortable. The fastest way to build chronic disease, keep yourself comfortable. There is a concept in the human body called hormetic stressors. And I call it microdosing hard. You have to microdose hard. I was just telling my friend that here in Turkey, I am increasing neuroplasticity in my brain by being in a country that speaks a different language, learning how to move around a city that I've never been in with a different culture. I am actually growing neurons. Is it easy? No, it's not easy, but I'm growing new neurons in my brain every time I put myself in a situation that's a little difficult. What we do, and I can only speak for what I see in America, is we never let ourselves be hungry.
We can sit on our couch and pick up our phone and we can order food to come to our front door. We never have to leave the couch. We can watch a Netflix series and we can binge watch it, never have to wait for when the next episode is going to appear. We hang out with the same people. We watch the same news channels. We do the same thing. If you never microdose hard, you will speed up the aging process. And fasting was the first way that we started to see, oh, look what the body can do when something hard is put in front of it.
You know, one difference between America and Turkey, I can say, is that financially well-grounded people in Turkey are living an easier life, unless they're very conscious. You will find fatter people, not walking, not, do whatever. And it's almost like I was doing a podcast with a friend of mine from America, actually, and he was describing in the old days in America, in these country clubs, the prestige is that having a belly and a cigar in your mouth. So this is now in Turkey, and people are going to watch me and they're going to hate me saying this, but people who are financially struggling, they're having much lesser food. They take public transportation, which they need to walk. And look around in Turkey. You're not going to see many fat people walking around. And you're going to, if anything, seeing like almost undernourished.
Overfed and undernourished.
Yeah. But in America, it's the contrary. You see these, educated, good jobs, somewhat financially stable. They run, they try to do, healthier things. But when you look to the unfortunate, underprivileged population, which would be mostly also African Americans, Latinos, and everything, there you will see more people who are looking in the middle aisles, like you said, eating these packaged food.
I can only speak in America, and this breaks my heart, that it's the people who with the lowest income that are suffering from these packaged foods. And I'll tell you a story that just broke my heart and still fuels me to this day, is during the pandemic, I was, a woman was a high school principal. She lived in the southern part of America. She followed my YouTube channel and she watched a video I did on how to keep your immune system strong. And she reached out to me and she said, they thought that her school was going to reopen. And she said, all my teachers are scared. Can you come talk to my teachers like on Zoom? And can you help them understand how to keep their immune system strong? I come from a family of teachers. My husband has a ton of teachers. So I was like so excited. I was like, yes, I want to give back to the teachers. So I gave this very long presentation on eat this food and that food. And take this supplement. At the end of the whole presentation, I asked if there were any questions. And this brave man raises his hand and he said, if I'm in my supermarket and I'm looking at 2 jars of nut butter, and one has a toxic oil and one has a healthy oil, that's an $8 difference. I don't have that $8. Then another woman raised her hand and she said, I get up at 4 a.m. and I get in a car. I'm at my school by 5. I am preparing for my classroom. I will be in my classroom. I don't take a lunch break all the way until 4 p.m. and then I go home. I'm exhausted. The only place that I go that I can make food is I drive through fast food. I'm not going to go home and make food. I'm so tired. And that was when I was like, this is why we need fasting. Because what that whole conversation should have been to those beautiful teachers, it should have been a conversation of how do you save money and how do you save time to keep yourself healthy. And that's when I realized fasting can really, if you understand it at the level that I'm teaching it, it can overturn the chronic disease problem that we have.
So basically, you're using fasting as a medication.
Exactly.
You're eating a garbage because you have to. You don't have the money. So when you fast, at least you're going to be getting rid of these toxins.
Yeah. And on that one, just think this through, because this is where I just get so excited. So you're using it as a medication, but you're doing it for yourself. So what ends up happening is, who do you thank? You thank yourself. Yeah. This is what I always say. I thought I was writing a fasting book for women. I wrote a women's empowerment book. And I will speak from an American lens. When a woman is overweight and she can't lose weight, and she goes into her doctor and she gives her Ozempic. She takes Ozempic. She doesn't think, I did this for myself. She's like, the drug did this for me. there's no empowerment in that. I take that same woman, I show her how to do a fasting lifestyle. She loses weight. All of a sudden, she's like, I did this for myself. What else can I do for myself?
That's amazing. Yeah, I read so many stories about these women are so proud of themselves.
So
and actually,
proud.
it's such something to be so proud of, resembling it to my sobriety. You know, like I shopped so many doctors in Turkey. None of these things worked.
Yeah.
And when I did put the effort in, when I went to a rehab, which fine, you know, they were helping me. But then after I said, okay, I'm going to stay and live in Reading. I'm going to go 2 meetings a day. I'm going to learn this. Then, you know, to be honest with you, I'm at this age, that's the thing that I'm proudest the most about myself.
Yes.
And it's only me who can do it.
Yes.
Not my mom, not my dad, not my sister, not my friends.
That's right.
It's in my hand. If I follow what I need to do,
That's right.
I'm going to stay sober. So it's kind of very similar.
Yeah. So imagine if somebody had given you a shot and you had gotten sober like that.
I have to say something. You know, there are these, you know, new technologies and they're trying to find a solution to switch that, whatever is happening in the brain. And I'm like, you know what? I wouldn't want that. I love this style.
That's right.
And like exactly you said, it gives me an empowerment.
Yeah.
And actually, it even gives me the freedom and the support in a way that if everything goes horrible today, but I'm still sober.
Yes. And I did it for myself.
Yep.
So if everything goes awry, what else can I do for myself? And actually now I'm thinking about the story you told to us about how you got sober and then you wanted to know more. You got curious. What else do I need to learn? What other environments do I need to put myself in? The same thing. We have a food addiction problem. We have a metabolic mess in this world.
Can you explain in detail, please, the metabolic switch? What does that mean? Why it's like you said that it's like an epidemic?
Yeah. So people should know that you have two metabolisms.
All right.
One I call sugar burner metabolism, and the other is fat burner. So when you eat, you stimulate the sugar burner system. When you are dieting, you are still only working from the sugar burner system. When you're counting calories, only working from the sugar burner system. But the fat burner system can only, there are other ways to activate it, but the main way to activate it is to absence of food. And you need to go at least, like we talked about, 12 hours without food. 12 hours after you eat your last meal, your body comes over to the fat burner system and it starts to burn fat for energy and it makes a ketone. So in the book, I put a whole chapter. This was like a really important chapter for me, that the secret key to weight loss is not manipulating the sugar burner system. The key to weight loss is metabolically switching in and out of these two systems.
And between foods as well?
And foods. And here's why you want to vary foods, because you have trillions of microbes in your gut. And so you want to make sure you feed them all. So yeah.
So basically, you shouldn't do everything every day, the same things.
Bingo.
Besides sleep.
That's right. Right. I mean, sleep, there's a few circadian rhythm things. Sleep is one of them that are best done every day.
I'm very curious, actually, because I love empowering people. And, you know, I do have a nonprofit and I work with street kids and, you know, people who are in need. And I know that you have this passion of empowering women.
Yeah.
You belong to an organization, or you did build an organization.
Yeah. So
it's important. I would like to talk about that.
I mean, full transparency, as my social media platforms grew, I had a lot of companies that said, I will pay you money to hold my product up and say you like my product. And my first thought was, well, I would need to like the product. I'm not just going to hold up a product because somebody's paying me money. But after a year of doing that, I started to take a step back and say, if people are listening to me, if I have millions of followers, why wouldn't I use that social influence for good? What other ways can we help women other than health? So we started something called Give Like a Girl, where we started to look at different organizations that were helping women, and we're using my platform to bring attention to these areas. I'll give you an example of one that we'll be profiling in a couple of weeks. October 11th is...
my birthday.
Do you know that it's International Day of the
Really?
Girl this year.
Oh.
Yeah. So I just did a podcast interview with an organization called Vow for Girls, and they are working worldwide to end child marriage for girls.
That's a huge issue, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a huge issue. So on October 11th, my platform will be highlighting Vow for Girls and helping raise money for this organization that's doing incredible work in the world. We have a health center in Indonesia that we're supporting, a women's health center. We have some sex trafficking organizations. So I'm trying to use social influence
Sure.
to be able to empower organizations.
And also you are in Turkey, part tourist, part going
right.
to Gaziantep, which, people think that I'm from there because I built the place over there. I'm not.
Yeah.
So you're going there again for that purpose, correct?
Yeah, for bringing, tourism and dollars and awareness to areas around the world that are supporting women that need our help. I mean, here's something really interesting that we haven't talked about. As women, we are connectors. We need to collaborate with each other, not compete with each other.
Sure.
When one woman is suffering, all women are suffering. And when one woman is healed, we heal all women. And so the focus for me now in the place I've gotten in my career is how do I take my time, my visibility, my dollars, and go to areas where we can lift women up.
It's really important, it's, I don't know, for whatever reason, I come from a very, all women in my family are strong, whether they work or not. So I never allowed myself to be not strong. And also that's a burden.
It is a burden.
It's also, that's also a burden.
Yeah.
It's like constantly competing with successful people, men, high achievers and stuff. But, women, we have so much on our shoulders. That's why probably also they say the Alzheimer's disease is more prevalent in women.
I did some research this year on what's the difference between a patriarchal society and a matriarchal society. And there's a lot of conflicting ideas about what a matriarchal society looked like, centuries ago. The best definition that I could find that I agree with is a patriarchal society is one that has power over you. The food system in America is a patriarchal system. The big pharma is a patriarchal system. This is not man-woman. This is a system that has power over you. A matriarchal system is power within. So when I can teach a woman how to take back control of her health, boom, now she has power within. And now we are starting to create more and more of this matriarchal energy. What you're doing with your podcast, with your philanthropic work, you are empowering women to believe in themselves. And we are shifting the tides of this patriarchal system that has so many women burdened and exhausted and feeling less than and not worthy. We need more balance. We need more of this matriarchal energy to come back in order not just to heal women, but to heal the planet and to heal all of humanity. But as long as there's power over us, the burden will continue. The unworthiness will continue. That is what I think where you and I unite and what we're trying to do.
It's very interesting to hear from an American that, they're thinking the same way. I know that, especially these days, that's the huge issue. We're having death of little girls due to these weird systems, let's say. They just either they're being married to an older person or the poor thing is want to kill themselves and so on and so forth. These days it's like a very, very fired up in Turkey, but seeing this similar things are happening in different parts of the world is at least it's a comfort that we're all dealing for the same thing.
Yeah.
So let's come to your book that is coming, because I'm very excited about that.
Thank you.
Because over there, the most important and exciting thing for me that you have like these cheat snacks when you're fasting. So I'm looking forward for that.
The fasted snacks, yes.
So that book is going to be guiding people who are either vegetarians or carnivores or whatever. So there's going to be a selection of food.
Yeah. So what happened with Fast Like a Girl is so many people got such great results, but then they started messaging us and saying, I don't know what to eat.
Yep.
So that was why Eat Like a Girl needed to happen. And so the first part of the book is all what women and girls, I actually wrote it a lot with the 20-year-old, the 16-year-old in mind, because that generation is really struggling a lot. So I wanted to be able to teach. And actually, it was the mama bears that came to me and said, how do I teach this to my daughter? So I wanted to teach women and girls how to eat according to their hormones. The back half of the section was I hired 2 chefs. One is an omnivore chef, and he actually knows how to make meat. He studied with the women in Spain who taught him how to make incredible meat recipes. And then I hired a plant-based chef who said to me, there's 23,000 edible plants on the planet.
23,000.
And she said, my goal is to learn how to cook all these. And I told her, well, my goal is to teach you how to time hormones to all of these.
Oh, wonderful.
So that's the back half. But in there is, to your point, is something called the fasted snack. So a lot of people asked me, is there anything I can eat or drink in my fasting window? And yeah, actually there's a formula. And I found it in Science.
Do you want to give it cheat, a little cheat?
I'll give pieces of it. I'll give pieces of it. If there's a calorie amount, you can't go over a certain calorie amount.
All right.
So in your fasting window, and the calorie amount is around 300 to 400 calories, you can't go over the protein amount. So these fasted snacks don't have any protein in them.
Like coconut yogurt, maybe?
Yeah. So you have to keep the protein at least under 20 grams of protein, which that's not hard to do. And it can't raise your glucose.
Okay.
So that's where it gets tricky. It can't raise your glucose, otherwise it switches you back into sugar burner.
Okay. So we're controlling with the glucose levels.
That's right. So I went to my plant-based chef and I was like, can you make me something that fits these parameters?
It's tougher with the plants, the glucose.
Yeah.
Unless you eat like spinach
Very well
or
said.
arugula, it's like, anything you eat is like spiking up.
That's right. Very well said. Yeah. So it was tricky. And I couldn't get the meat guy. I was like, I need more of the plant-based. So we came up, she has a handful of recipes in there that you can have in your fasting window.
So kind of then in these fasting windows, you're a little flexible toward calorie restriction-ish.
Yeah, ish.
Yeah, if you really need, you can eat like, what you said, 300?
Yeah, 300, yeah.
That's what they say, no? When I look in the literature, when they say calorie restriction, for women is 500 and for men is 600.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and there's some drinks in there because a lot of people, I always tell people in the fasting window, put some mineral water in a fancy glass so that you feel like you're drinking something.
Well, that's my life because I cannot drink alcohol.
That's right.
So
the glass matters, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's so funny.
I kind of do these fancy things and people think like sometimes it's mojito, which is not, or sometimes they think it's a wine, which is not.
Yeah.
But at least it gives me the pleasure. One last thing that I want to ask, because I really want to understand, these 3-day fast, how often it has to be?
The research that I've seen is twice a year if you're trying to get rid of cells that don't serve you anymore. So I always say do it in January and do it in September. Now that's for, my hemisphere because January is after the holidays, the, American holidays. And then we've got, the summer after the summer. So after the biggest times that you've gone wrong with your diet.
So it's not like every few months?
No, definitely not every few months. This is not 3-day water fasts are meant to get rid of the cells that aren't working for you. They are not meant to be done monthly unless you have a chronic problem.
Normally I end my podcast to ask my guests to give like easy to use free tricks, but you give the whole thing like how to live a life. So thank you so much for coming to my podcast. I learned so much. And hopefully in a while you will have new researches and information and you'll come back. Thank you so much. I appreciate your presence very much.
Yeah, I appreciate you.